I'm yours completely, just give me a son, begged the barren young woman to the Apache Omega. Eliza had been traveling for what felt like days, her mind a whirlwind of uncertainty and hope. The ship's engines hummed quietly as she stared out at the rugged landscape of the barren planet below. Crimson Ridge, what a strange, desolate place it was. But it was her last hope. The stories of the Apache Omegas, ancient humans who supposedly carried the power to heal and restore, had reached her ears in the distant colony she had called home. And now she had arrived at the edge of that very world, desperate to find what she had heard about. She had tried everything. The doctors in her colony, high-tech physicians who relied on the latest advancements, had told her that her body was broken, that no medicine could fix what was inside her. Eliza's heart had sunk with each diagnosis, each failed attempt to carry a child. The barren emptiness that filled her had eaten away at her spirit, but the stories of Waya, the last of the Apache Omegas, were different. He was said to be someone who could restore what was lost, and she couldn't help but wonder if he could give her the one thing she'd wanted for years, a child. As Eliza stepped off the transport ship, the hot wind of Crimson Ridge rushed past her. The air was thick with dust, and the sun beat down relentlessly. The frontier town sprawled before her, a collection of wooden buildings surrounded by wild terrain and mountains in the distance, a far cry from the sterile, controlled environment she'd come from. Here, everything was raw and untamed, just like the legend of Waya, the man she had come to find. Crimson Ridge was a hard place. It wasn't a city. It was a settlement built on survival, with miners, traders, and explorers who lived off the land's meager offerings. People lived in constant struggle with the planet's harsh conditions, and Eliza couldn't help but feel a strange excitement in the midst of it all. This was where she would find Waya. She didn't know how or when, but she was determined. She walked through the town, asking around for information. People were suspicious of her, a lone woman with no particular reason to be there except a desperate plea for help. But the stories persisted. Waya lived at the edge of town, near the hills. He was a man of few words, they said, and he only helped those who proved themselves worthy. After hours of searching and navigating the dusty roads, Eliza finally found herself standing before a small, weathered cabin. It was unlike any other building in Crimson Ridge. It was simple, made of timber and stone, with a small garden of herbs growing in front. The air around the cabin seemed to hum with something Eliza couldn't quite place, a deep connection to the earth. Was she truly ready for this? Her heart beat faster as she stepped closer to the door. She knocked softly, unsure of what to expect. A few moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a tall figure standing in the doorway. His skin was weathered by years of exposure to the harsh elements, and his dark eyes seemed to pierce through her, reading her every thought. His hair, long and black, fell loosely over his shoulders, and his expression was unreadable. "You found me," he said, his voice deep and steady. There was no greeting, no warmth, just a statement of fact. He knew why she was here, and yet he made no move to welcome her. Eliza took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I've heard about you, about your gift." Her voice trembled slightly. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but she needed this. She needed him. Waya remained silent for a long moment, studying her. His gaze seemed to weigh her down, and for a second Eliza felt like she might turn and run, but she stood her ground, her hands trembling at her sides. "I need your help," she said, her voice firmer this time. "I can't have children. I've tried everything, but nothing works. I've heard that you—" "Huh, I know what you've heard." Waya cut her off, his tone more patient than she had expected. "You've come looking for a miracle. But nothing in this world is free. If you seek my help, you must understand what it means."
Eliza nodded quickly.
"Desperate. I'll do whatever it takes. Please, I just need a child. I've waited for so long." Waya's eyes softened slightly, but only for a moment. "You don't know what you're asking. This isn't a simple request. It's more than just a matter of healing. There's a bond you must form, a trust you must earn." He stepped back, allowing her to enter the cabin. Inside, the cabin was humble but cozy. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, tools, and what looked like herbs and artifacts from old times. The air smelled of earth, firewood, and something she couldn't quite identify. Something ancient. Waya led her to a chair by the fireplace, where a low fire crackled softly. "There are trials you must undergo," Waya continued, his voice steady. "This land doesn't give freely. You must prove that you're worthy of its gifts, and that means testing your body, your mind, and your spirit. She hadn't expected this. She thought it would be simple, a treatment, a cure, and then a child. But this was something else entirely. What kind of trials, she asked, trying to mask the fear in her voice. Survival, Waya replied. You will learn the ways of this land. You will face its dangers and its challenges. Only then will I know if you are worthy of what you seek. Eliza's mind raced, but her desire for a child was stronger than anything else. She had come this far, and there was no turning back now. I'll do it, she said, her voice firm despite the nerves running through her. I'll prove myself. Very well. Tomorrow, the trials begin. The next morning, the sun rose over the hills of Crimson Ridge, painting the sky with hues of orange and red. Eliza had slept little the night before. Her mind had raced with questions and doubts. The trials Waya spoke of felt daunting, and she wasn't sure what to expect. Still, her determination hadn't wavered. She had come this far, and there was no turning back. Waya stood outside his cabin, waiting for her. His figure was tall against the rising sun, the edges of his silhouette sharp and defined. Eliza approached him, her heart thudding in her chest. Are you ready? Waya asked, his voice calm but firm. I'm ready, Eliza replied, trying to steady her breath. She couldn't show him her fear. Not now. Waya nodded and gestured for her to follow him. The land around the cabin was vast and wild, stretching out in every direction. It was beautiful in its rawness, the kind of beauty that only the untouched earth could offer. But Eliza wasn't here to admire the landscape. She was here to prove herself. They walked in silence for a while, the sound of their boots crunching against the dirt the only noise in the air. Waya led her to a small stream that cut through the land, its waters clear and cold. He stopped by the edge, his expression unreadable. Your first test will be to cross this stream, he said. The current is strong, and the rocks are slippery. Many who've come before you have failed. Eliza looked at the stream. The water flowed swiftly, the rocks jutting out like obstacles waiting to be conquered. The challenge was clear. Cross the stream without falling. It seemed simple enough, but Eliza knew that nothing in this land was ever truly simple. She stepped forward, feeling the coldness of the air as she approached the water. Waya stood back, watching her carefully. She could feel his eyes on her, assessing her every move. Taking a deep breath, Eliza stepped onto the first rock. It was slippery underfoot, and for a moment she felt her balance waver. But she quickly regained her footing, stepping carefully from one rock to the next. The cold water splashed against her legs, making her skin tingle, but she didn't stop. Her mind was focused, and every step she took brought her closer to the other side. As she neared the final rock, her foot slipped on the wet surface. She gasped, her heart racing as she felt herself start to fall. But just before she lost her balance completely, a strong hand reached out to steady her. Waya's grip was firm, and he pulled her back to her feet. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something other than indifference in them. There was respect. You did well, he said, his voice low. But this is only the beginning. Eliza nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. She had passed the first test, but she knew there were more challenges to come. Waya didn't waste time with words. He turned and began walking again, and Eliza followed, ready for whatever came next. The next test came sooner than Eliza expected. Waya led her to a small cave nestled between two cliffs, the entrance hidden behind thick vines and bushes. The air inside the cave was cool, and the scent of earth filled her nostrils. There's something inside the cave that you must retrieve, Waya said, his voice echoing in the narrow space. A stone. It's hidden deep inside. You will need to find it, but beware. The cave is home to dangerous creatures. Eliza's pulse quickened, but she didn't let her fear show. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to back down now. She nodded and stepped into the cave, her footsteps muffled by the soft ground beneath her. The further she went into the cave, the darker it became. Her breath echoed in the silence, and the only light came from the small lantern she carried in her hand. As she ventured deeper, she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She couldn't see anything in the dark, but she could feel the presence of something watching her. Suddenly there was a rustling sound from behind a nearby rock. Eliza froze, her heart racing. Something moved in the shadows, and she instinctively gripped the lantern tighter. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew she had to stay calm. Out of the darkness, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, followed by the low growl of a creature. Eliza's breath caught in her throat as she faced the creature, a large reptilian beast with sharp claws and teeth that gleamed in the dim light. It was a guardian of the cave, its job to protect whatever was hidden inside. The creature bared its teeth and stepped closer. Its eyes locked onto Eliza. She had no weapons, no way to fight it. But she wasn't here to fight. She was here to prove herself. Taking a deep breath, Eliza reached for the small pouch at her side. Inside, she carried a bundle of herbs Waya had given her the day before. He had told her they were used to calm the wild creatures of the land, but she wasn't sure if they would work on this beast. With a steady hand, Eliza pulled out the herbs and crushed them between her fingers, releasing their scent into the air. The creature hesitated, its growl softening. Eliza slowly took a step forward, holding out her hand in a peaceful gesture. The beast sniffed the air, its eyes narrowing as it tested the scent. After a long moment, it backed away, its growl fading into silence. Eliza let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, and carefully stepped past the creature. It didn't follow her. She moved deeper into the cave, finding the stone she had been sent to retrieve. It was nestled in a small alcove, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. She picked it up carefully, feeling its weight in her palm. It was smooth, cold, and powerful. With the stone in hand, Eliza retraced her steps, exiting the cave without incident. Waya was waiting outside, watching her with quiet approval. "You did well," he said again, his voice softer this time. "You've proven you can think, not just act." "That is the way of this land." Eliza smiled, her body sore from the trials, but her spirits stronger than ever. She had passed another test, and she was one step closer to what she had come for. But there was still more to prove, and she would keep going. Eliza's body ached from the trials she had faced over the past few days. Each test had pushed her beyond her limits, but with every challenge she felt herself growing stronger. The trials had been more than just physical tests. They had been lessons in survival, patience, and understanding the land. Waya had watched her closely, his eyes never revealing much, but she knew he was evaluating her every move. Now, standing beside him in the cool shade of the ancient trees, Eliza could feel the air change. There was something different about today. Waya had told her the time had come for the final trial, the one she had been preparing for, the ceremony. "Are you ready?" Waya's voice was steady, but Eliza could hear the seriousness behind his words. There was no room for doubt now. "I am," she replied, her voice quieter than she intended. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she had come this far. She had faced each test, each fear, and overcome them. She would do the same now.
Wyatt turned and began to walk, his footsteps sure and unhurried.
Eliza followed closely, her mind spinning with the unknowns of what this ceremony would require. She had heard whispers about it, stories of ancient rituals that tied the participants not just to each other, but to the land itself. She had learned of the Omega bond that Waya carried, a gift from his ancestors that connected him to the earth in ways that no one else could understand. The ceremony would bind them together in more than just body. It would be a union of spirit, mind, and the very earth beneath their feet. She had asked Waya about it before, but he had remained silent, offering only the smallest hints about what would come. They arrived at a clearing, a sacred spot far from the town of Crimson Ridge, where the wind whispered through the trees and the land seemed to hum with ancient energy. Eliza could feel it now, an invisible connection to everything around her, as if the very earth beneath her feet was alive, watching, waiting. At the center of the clearing stood a large stone, worn smooth by time. It was covered in strange symbols Eliza didn't recognize, but which seemed familiar in some way. Waya stopped before the stone and turned to her. "This is where it begins," he said. "We will join with the land and with each other. Only then will you receive what you seek." Eliza nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the air thick with expectation. She had come for a child, yes, but she had also come for something deeper, a connection to something greater than herself, something ancient. Waya moved to stand beside the stone, and Eliza did the same. He held out his hand, and she took it without hesitation. The touch of his skin against hers was electric, like a spark that traveled up her arm and settled deep within her chest. "We will begin now," he said. "Follow my lead." Waya began to chant softly, his voice low and steady. The words were foreign to Eliza, but there was a rhythm to them that felt right. She closed her eyes, letting the sound of his voice wash over her. It was as if the world had fallen away, and all that remained was the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the steady beat of life itself. As Waya continued to chant, the ground beneath them began to vibrate, faintly at first, then more strongly. Eliza's heart raced, the energy in the air growing thicker, more intense. She felt the connection between them deepening, the bond strengthening, until it felt as though they were no longer two separate beings but one, joined by something far older and more powerful than either of them. Waya's chanting grew louder, more insistent, and Eliza could feel the power of it surging through her. It was a strange sensation, as if her body were both part of her and part of the earth itself. She could feel the soil, the rocks, the very trees around them, all connected by an invisible thread that linked her to everything around her. Then, without warning, Waya stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, but Eliza did not open her eyes. She felt a strange warmth spread through her body, a sensation she could not explain. Her heart began to race, and she could hear the sound of her breath in her ears, faster now, as if it were in time with something else. "Open your eyes," Waya's voice broke through the stillness. Eliza opened her eyes slowly, and what she saw took her breath away. The stone before her was glowing now, a soft golden light that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of her own heartbeat. The symbols etched into the stone shimmered as if alive. It was as though the land itself had come alive, responding to the ceremony, to the bond they were forming. Waya stepped closer to her, his eyes locked onto hers. He reached out, his hand warm against her cheek, and for a moment Eliza forgot everything, her fears, her doubts, even her longing. All that mattered was the connection between them, the deep bond that had been formed in the silence of the ceremony. "This is the final step," Waya said softly. "You must trust completely now. Let go of everything that holds you back." Eliza took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of his hand on her skin, the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, and the steady rhythm of her own heart. She closed her eyes again, letting go of everything she had been holding on to, the fear, the longing, the uncertainty. She opened herself fully to the ceremony, to the land, and to Waya, and then she felt it. It was as if something inside her shifted, as if a door had opened deep within her soul. She could feel the energy of the land flowing through her, filling her, connecting her to Waya in a way she had never imagined. The bond between them deepened, and she could feel the presence of something new, something powerful, growing inside her. Waya's voice echoed softly in her mind, a whisper that seemed to come from the very earth itself. "It is done," he said. "The gift has been given." Eliza opened her eyes, and for the first time she saw the future before her, a future that was no longer defined by her past, but by the bond she had formed with Waya and the land. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years she felt a deep sense of peace. As she looked into Waya's eyes, she realized that she had not just received what she had come for, a child, but something more profound. She had found a place where she truly belonged, a place where she was connected to the land, to Waya, and to something greater than herself. The ceremony was over, but their journey was just beginning. The days following the ceremony were filled with an undeniable peace. Eliza's heart, once heavy with the weight of her desires and doubts, now felt lighter. The land, the ceremony, and her bond with Waya had shifted something deep within her. She felt more connected to the world around her than ever before. The earth seemed to hum beneath her feet, and the air felt fresher, somehow more alive. Eliza had expected the days after the ceremony to be full of uncertainty, filled with questions of what the future would hold, but instead she felt a strange calm. It was as if the answers had already been written, waiting for her to find them. Waya had told her that the land and their connection to it would give her the strength she needed, and now she could feel that strength growing inside her. She spent her days learning more about the land and the people who had once lived here. Waya spoke to her of his ancestors, of the Apache Omegas who had called this place home long before the colonists had arrived. Their ways were simple, connected to the earth and guided by respect for nature's balance. Waya was the last of his kind, but through him, Eliza began to understand what it meant to truly live in harmony with the land. One morning as the sun rose over Crimson Ridge, Eliza found herself standing by the edge of the river that ran through the land. She watched as the water flowed smoothly, its surface reflecting the golden light of the dawn. She had always found peace by the water, but today felt different. The water seemed to call to her, as if it carried a message she had yet to understand. Eliza knelt by the river's edge and dipped her fingers into the cool water. The sensation was calming, grounding, and she could feel the earth beneath her pulse. Her heart began to beat in time with the flow of the water, the rhythm of the land. A rustling sound behind her made her turn. Waya stood a few paces away, watching her with a quiet, thoughtful expression. "It's time," he said simply. Eliza's heart skipped a beat. Time for what? she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. To see if the land has given you the gift you asked for, Waya replied, his voice low but filled with meaning. Was it really time? She had felt the changes, the bond between her and the earth, but she wasn't sure if it was enough. She wasn't sure if she was ready. Waya stepped forward, his eyes meeting hers. You've already proven your worth, Eliza. The trials, the ceremony, it was all part of your journey. But this is the final step. The final step. Eliza's breath caught in her throat. She had come so far, and now she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This was what she had been waiting for, the chance to see if the gift, the child she longed for, had been given to her. Waya reached out and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. The earth has been listening, now you must listen to it too. Eliza nodded, her fingers still resting in the cool water. She closed her eyes, letting her senses open to the world around her. The wind brushed softly against her skin, the distant calls of birds echoed through the trees, and the river's steady flow was a constant rhythm in her mind. She focused on that rhythm, allowing it to guide her, to connect her to the land, to Waya, and to everything that had come before her. For a long moment, Eliza felt nothing but the peace of the land. She opened her eyes and looked at Waya, unsure of what had happened, but knowing in her heart that something had changed. The bond they shared had grown deeper, more powerful.
Waya watched her with understanding in his eyes.
He didn't speak at first. Instead, he knelt beside her, placing his hand over hers in the water. Together they sat in silence, connected to the land and to each other. Then Eliza felt it, a warmth, subtle but undeniable, spread through her body. It started in her chest, deep within, and slowly radiated outward. She gasped as the feeling grew stronger, more intense. It was like a new life had begun inside her, a tiny spark of something new, something alive. She looked at Waya, her eyes wide with awe. It's happening, she whispered. Waya's face softened, and he nodded. The land has answered. You've been given what you sought. Eliza's heart raced as she realized what had just happened. She had felt it. The change, the growth, the beginning of new life. She placed a hand gently over her stomach, as if to cradle the spark that had begun inside her. I'm carrying a child, she murmured, disbelief and joy swirling within her. Waya nodded again, his voice steady and filled with quiet strength. Yes, a child who is part of the land, part of us. Tears filled Eliza's eyes as the full weight of the moment hit her. She had come to Crimson Ridge searching for a miracle, for something she wasn't sure could be found. But now she knew that she had received more than she ever imagined. She had found not just a child, but a deep connection to Waya, to the land, and to a future she could now see unfolding before her. For the first time, Eliza understood what Waya had meant when he said that the land would give her strength. It wasn't just about the child. It was about the journey she had taken, the bond she had formed, and the peace she had found in the rhythm of the earth. Waya stood, extending his hand to her. Come, he said gently. There is much to be done. The child will need our care, and you will need time to prepare. But for now, we take this moment to honor what has been given. Eliza took his hand, rising to her feet, and together they stood by the river, watching as the sun rose higher in the sky. The future stretched out before them, uncertain but full of promise. And for the first time in a long while, Eliza felt ready to face whatever came next. The land had given her what she had longed for, but in return she had also given herself, to Waya, to the earth, and to the new life growing inside her. It was the beginning of something new, something profound, and as she looked to the horizon, Eliza knew that this was just the start of her journey.